What's up, family? I just got done recording this episode with TJ Loeffler. He has an amazing story. So he's a private coach. He formerly worked at Goldman Sachs. And this conversation that we had is absolutely impactful. It's probably one of the most important conversations that I've had on this entire podcast so far. We talk about identity, but more importantly than identity, we talk about what it means to actually heal. And I'm not talking about taking supplements or doing red light or walking in the sun. We're talking about deep spiritual healing and how you can step into who you were called to be and who you were called to be by God and who God made you to be. So if you're looking for a deeply impactful, very down-to-earth spiritual conversation, this is the one for you. I guarantee it will change your life. There are so many gold nuggets that TJ dropped, and we kind of just jump right into it. So when we're done with this, you're literally going to see us right in the middle of a conversation because it was too good to not include on the front end. So check it out, enjoy. You'll get the context for the conversation pretty quickly, but we kind of jump right in. So enjoy it, and we'll catch you at the end. Peace.
Back in 2016, when I started this journey in what I'm doing now, more professionally, but I was going through a spiritual awakening. I was going through a lot of awakenings, spiritual being the foundational one. And I remember God specifically, and this was the first time I was really understanding I could hear God's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember specifically through journaling and some other things, I was starting to realize, wow, like, it's not just God's voice, but there's other voices going on here. My voice,
for sure.
The enemy, all these other things. I didn't have any grid. Nobody was there discipling me. It was literally me, my Bible, and the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
And I remember I wrote an email to myself I was looking at yesterday that I was reminded of while you were praying. And that email from 2016 says, lose your desire for significance and I'll bestow everything on you.
So good.
And I know today you were talking about maybe we start with this journey of transition from where I was to where I am. And I can tell you that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Losing my desire for significance.
Well, let's just start there. We already started. I'm going to go from like that when we ended praying. It never happens by coincidence, but like, I would love to know before we go to the Goldman Sachs and all the like conversation that other people get really excited about, just selfishly, like you kind of said that you didn't have anybody discipling you if you go back to that 2016 moment. So do you mind sharing just kind of your journey of like what brought you, like how did the Lord bring you in and how did that conversation start? Because it sounds like more so than I probably anticipated. My journey was like, I just showed up to church because a bunch of people asked me and I felt like I was called to do it. I didn't really know why. I knew nothing, had never been to church before, used to identify like straight up atheist and had this whole transition. And it sounds like maybe not as intense as my journey, but you were kind of like no one discipling you. I had the same. So what was that like for you in 2016 to go from like, okay, God is like calling me in somehow. What'd that look like?
Yeah, I would say, so it started, if you just rewind it, and everybody's got their own version of what this looks like.
For sure.
But faith was always pretty natural for me.
Gotcha.
So faith, just like the act of having faith was always pretty natural. And being adopted, it was a pretty special thing because I remember my mom sitting me down on the bed. I must have been 5, 6, I don't know how many years old, telling me, hey, you're adopted. I didn't know what that meant, but I vividly, core memory, remember thinking, wow, like I'm special. Like there must be a reason I'm here.
Yeah.
That's literally all I thought. And I was such a young kid. And so as I grew up, things like praying at night by myself, on my knees, in my bedroom, lights out, nobody really teaching me how to pray.
That is wild.
Just there. It's natural, somewhere inside of you. Right. And I was introduced to the idea of God through the Catholic Church. I was adopted through Catholic charities. And then I attended Catholic Church kind of like on the holiday cycle, So that was what I would say is the beginning of that, which was faith was natural. I was introduced to the idea of God through ritualistic things, which are not necessarily bad. They're just ritualistic things.
For sure.
Right. And at the same time, it sparked something. I went through my journey, went through my life, and a lot of striving, a lot of trying to achieve and perform to compensate for what was like this core wound of the adoption thing, feeling like I maybe wasn't significant.
Yeah.
even though I had this idea, I am significant. So that conflict and battle, it was a war for a long time. And the way that it was expressed, and it happens for a lot of high performing, high functioning people, is you strive for accomplishment and achieve it. So captain of this, straight A of that, award here.
Yeah.
And the pinnacle of that for me was ultimately going to Goldman on Wall Street. And at that time, to answer your question more about like what was it like at that time, the spiritual awakening, right before I had my really intense spiritual awakening that I was describing, where God was speaking to me in my room, and he said, lose your desire for significance and I'll bestow everything on you. Right before that time was this kind of heavy burden of, I know that I'm made for more than my life that I have right now, but I'm just not going to be able to accomplish it myself. And I don't even know what it means to take the next step. So what did it look like? It looked like me going to work, me trying to find ways to deal with and cope the fact that I was unhappy and unsatisfied with my life completely through alcohol or traveling or gambling.
Yep.
And then it turned into also at the same time me deciding on weeknights, I'm just going to sit here by myself. And I went and bought a Bible and I started reading the Bible at night on weeknights. I get a glass of wine and I was just reading the Bible. And I was, now looking back, I can say, whoa, the Holy Spirit was like just showing up, because I was reading Proverbs and he was showing me everything in my life that he wanted to talk to me about.
Yeah.
Just reading Proverbs.
Wow.
Underlined, stars. I still have that Bible. I have dates. I have times. I have notes of exactly what he was trying to tell me at what point in time. And I can go back and say, this was when I realized this. And little by little and all at once, change starts to happen. And for me, what it looked like, I did have a couple friends in my life that I can say definitely were examples for me. God was speaking to me. I always say God shows up through people.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure. And they were speaking to me, pursuing me in different ways. And some of those ways, if I say I didn't have somebody discipling me, I can say I did have examples for me.
Yeah.
And some of those ways that people were showing up was one of my best friends. And I remember one day I got so mad at him, and it was literally just my flesh. And I got so mad at him, and there was absolutely no reason for me to be mad at him. And he knew that. And he looked at me and his eyes welled up. And he just said, TJ, I love you. And I can point to that moment without in that moment knowing he was showing me the love of Christ.
Wow.
I can point to that moment knowing that God was pursuing me through that moment.
Yeah.
Because I realized that's not what people do. He had every reason to be mad back, to react.
Yep.
And he literally took the blow and said, I love you. And he had no reason to even be in that situation in the first place. So was I discipled? Well, not directly, but God showed up through people. And my wife being one of them too.
Yeah.
Who I started dating her, and that started becoming a journey where now, instead of it was just me and my Bible, and I started going to a church and some other things, but it started to be more people. And so over time, it started to be different examples of people who kind of understood the journey of a spiritual awakening.
And so so go back to 2016, you were already at Goldman, right?
2015. Yeah, I left Goldman in 2015.
Okay, got it. So this is post that. So if we we'll go back in a second, because I want to talk specifically about Goldman, but before we get there, because this is too important to not touch on. I'm curious, like, were you actively like going to church, or was this still a thing for you where you're like, I'm praying and I did this as a kid and I got a Bible on my own? Like, what did that kind of look like?
Both.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, both. So that friend who said, I love you.
Yep.
He said, hey man, I'm going to this church. Do you want to come with me? At the time, we'd moved to New York together. And at the time I was saying, I'm more comfortable with like the Catholic church experience. He said, I'll go with you. So we went to that experience.
So good, man.
And then we went to the other church experience that he said, hey, I'm going here. And I literally got to experience both of them kind of back to back. And I said to myself, as I'm weeping in the worship service of this other church experience, I said to myself, something's different here.
Yeah.
And it's not because this guy on stage with music, it's not because necessarily the guy on stage is the pastor. There was an experiential difference.
Yeah.
I can speak to the biology of worship music and all that stuff and how that actually does impact
100%.
you. So
Yeah.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening going, oh, dude, but it is. No, actually, there's a deeper, more than physical level understanding that I was experiencing of the presence of the Holy Spirit in a powerful way in this non-denominational church. And just to speak to why he even ended up there, he was raised in a Mennonite background.
Wow.
And so coming from a Mennonite background, his whole family basically left the Mennonite community. I mean, we're talking horse and buggies. They still have horse and buggies down the street from their home. That's like third, fourth generation in Virginia. And their family left that whole community, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And he ended up leaving that community, but ended up in a non-denominational church community as they left the Mennonite community from a church standpoint. And so that was the reason he ended up going to a non-denominational church when we were in New York together. So, you know, similar parallel experience of he had this Mennonite background, I had this Catholic background. He said, hey, I'm at this non-denominational church. Do you want to check it out? I said, yes. Okay. So there I am going to church. I am getting encountered by the Holy Spirit in church, and I was hungry. I was taking notes, all these things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would say the most powerful experiences I have with God, not to discount those experiences, the most powerful, I would say most personal, were those one-on-one moments where there was no agenda, no script, no set list, nothing. It was actually just my choice to sit there and be at a table with my Bible. And at the time I had a glass of wine.
Yeah. Dude, I'm taking away, I want like people listening to like really get this concept, because I think like a lot of times I love to talk about God and all this stuff. And one of my favorite things, you don't even know this, that when you probably don't even remember saying it, but our first phone call that we had, that was like 10 minutes. One of the things you said is you were like, yeah, like we can speak the Christianese, and sometimes I probably have a tendency to do that a little bit more just because I get hyped up on it. But I think the most important thing that you're saying is that you don't have to step foot into a church to have an encounter with the Holy Spirit. And I love that you're a living, like walking out example of that. And we'll talk about it later, but I could share multiple examples of what's just happened in our time together right now so far that points to like, this is way bigger than coincidence could ever happen. So maybe we'll get there. But okay, so I love this idea of like, all right, pursuing the Lord, but at the same time, God is pursuing you. And this is going to get anything to the core of our conversation is you had an identity of striver. You said that as kind of like straight A's, captain of this, Goldman Sachs, right? So most people would look at that probably as the pinnacle of their career and like, oh, I made it. And I have a very similar story, but I don't need to share that because I want this to be about you. How, like, when you were at Goldman, give me like the moment that you decided like, I can no longer do this and there's something more, and that pivot, and kind of like, where were you? What did it look like? What did it feel like? Kind of walk us through that. Cause I think most people would hear it and go, you quit Goldman Sachs. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So they might even say that they might even have that reaction even more when it was like, you quit Goldman Sachs, you had a promotion, you had a 6-figure bonus. Right around the corner. Like, what are you doing? And I remember conversations with parents and just trying to, and I remember my dad saying, hey, like, you know, your life, you need to do what's best for you. My mom, maybe a different perspective, a little more fear, a little more, well, I don't understand any of this. So conflict is the way I'd summarize it. Conflict, deep internal conflict. And the reason people experience inner conflict is because they have black and white thinking.
For sure.
Think of a Venn diagram. You've got one circle, you've got another circle. If they're not overlapping, if they're separate, that's black and white thinking. And people have inner conflict because they don't understand that the circles can overlap, that life is gray, not just black and white. And for me, I thought, and the reason I had this conflict, and this will definitely resonate for somebody listening, oh, I can have success and money, or I can have fulfillment, joy, and happiness, and they cannot overlap. And that creates powerlessness. in your mind. You feel like you can't make a choice. There's no right choice. And anybody who's experiencing inner conflict and powerlessness, they are exhibiting symptoms of a victim mentality.
Yep.
The reason they're doing that is because they've been a victim at some point in time in their life. I'll give an example of me. I was a victim when I was adopted. I was a powerless baby, no choice in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Literally zero choice. I was a victim of the whole circumstance. I don't have to live as a victim.
Yeah.
But I was a victim.
Yeah.
Everybody has a micro or macro example of that same thing in their life. And you have to identify a victim mentality when you have it. So for me, the reason that I was in that situation experiencing conflict was because I had a victim mentality. I didn't understand it. And what that process looked like of me realizing that I could get out of it was realizing I had a choice.
Yeah.
And practically what that looked like was for years I was conflicted. So I was only at Goldman for about 3 years, maybe 4 internship, whatever. And, during pretty much that entire time I was conflicted. I was saying, well, I can take this next step, grow, achieve, earn, but like this void's getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And it seems like I can't do anything about it by just achieving or earning. So that whole process, while going to church, while trying to cope and deal with all of it, made for a very draining experience for several years.
For sure.
And it was less about the job and more about me. And, frankly, with a different mindset and perspective approaching that same experience, I might have stayed there a lot longer.
Yeah.
But I need to go through healing and I need to go through change and renewing. And I'm still going through that, but I really had to at that point. So for me, that experience of this can change happened when I was, a few years in. I was running in Central Park. One of the ways I was coping was trying to work out, beating my body up, did not understand recovery.
Sure.
But I was running, and I said, I'm tired. Literally, the drain just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was going, I'm tired. And it was about 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon, Central Park. I laid down. I just took a nap. And I remember when I woke up from that nap, I don't know how long the nap was, but I woke up from the nap and, I'm wearing my running clothes. It's not weird because there's a bunch of people out. It's broad daylight. But I woke up from the nap and I remember I had the peace of God that surpasses understanding. And it literally hit me in my mind in a way that I could not have made that choice on my own. And I said, I think I'm going to resign tomorrow.
Wow.
It was that
Come
clear.
on, dude.
And then I'll add just one little micro thing about how God shows up through people. There's this guy named Renand who was a security guy at the front. I talked with Renand every day.
Yep.
I would go down and get my coffee. I would stand there. I'd talk with them, sometimes probably too long, away from the desk too long, sometimes 30 minutes of literally just standing there because that was just part of my day I found fulfilling. And Renand was there every day. And I walked down that day and I didn't see Renand. And I was thinking to myself, man, right before I walked down, I really hope I see Renand because I might not see him again. If I walk up there and resign, they might say, pack your stuff, leave. You got to leave right now.
Yeah.
It's just a known thing. You pack your box, whatever. And because you have sensitive information, whatever, they want you out the door now. Not always, but I knew that was a possibility. So I walked downstairs. I didn't see him. I go get my coffee. I thought, man, that's sad because I'm going to walk back upstairs and resign. And I remember thinking to myself, I really hope this is the right decision. So I walked back into where the guy who's standing in Renand's place is looking at me. And I stopped because I couldn't get my badge out in time. And he looked at me. I'd never seen this guy before in my life. He looked at me dead in the eye and he goes, you don't have to walk back up there, right? And I was about to walk up to resign.
Dude.
I've never seen this guy in my life. And he's standing in the place that Renand was supposed to be. And I'm standing there fumbling around trying to find my badge. And he looks at me and says, hey, man, it's all good. Wow. You don't have to walk back up there. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that decides it.
Yep.
Here I go. And so it wasn't just this feeling. It wasn't just, like it was a rash decision. It was 3 years of wrestling. It was a moment of clarity with God after many, many, many nights of wrestling with God. And then it was confirmation, God showing up through people saying, hey, I got you.
So good, man. We could probably just like mic drop and end it right there. But I have many, many more questions. Okay, so go like a little bit more practical. So this is one of the things I see. I'm sure you probably see this too. So anybody listening, I'll do the intro obviously after. Wes, you might have to cut this, but you coach people in these exact kinds of transformations from that less success and striving, more fulfillment, right? We'll just leave it like real simple. I do the same with chiros. And a lot of times what we'll see is like, oh, I can't do that. I can never do what you did. So I'm just curious to know what your response to that is, because I see it all the time. And I'm very torn. There's this gray area. I love that you talk about nothing's black and white. I get very torn with wanting to just be like, yeah, you can just do whatever you want to do, right? And not in like a non-Christian type of way, but we have decisions and power that I don't think we give ourselves credit to. So I'm curious from your perspective, when somebody comes with that mentality, and that was me for many years teaching. My dad taught me that. I could go into like my whole backstory and where I learned some of this stuff from. But what do you say to the person who's like, well, that's great, TJ. Like, I know you could do that. Or Daniel, you could do that with teaching, like get offered a promotion, literally put in a 2-week notice the next day. What do you say to somebody who's like sitting there and they're like, that's great for you and Daniel, but TJ, I could never do that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm really not the best person for them right now, is what I say, because they're not ready.
Yeah.
So I've learned through coaching, and by the way, it's so funny. I'm looking over here just in my mind because I see things, and then I realize I'm looking. There's
you
a
can
camera.
Look wherever
I gotta
you
look
want,
at the
dude.
camera.
It's all good. No, you're great.
And when I talk with people for years, actually, so this is a very important question, because for years I wanted something for somebody else more than they wanted it for themselves. And that's not good when you're doing private coaching. Because you can spend a lot of time with somebody and not go anywhere. So for me, here's a different example. Biologically, you can spend a lot of time in the gym, but if your hormones aren't working right, you're not going to get great results. And you get a lot of people wasting their effort and energy, men, women. Oh, I do Orange Theory. Oh, I do this. Oh, I do that. And it's like, well, what's your physical goal out of that? And a lot of times people are just taking out their negative inner thoughts and they're beating their body up for it. And they don't even have a physical goal other than to look slimmer or this or that. And here's a turning point for me. I'm going to tie it back in. But when my health awakening happened, because I watched my dad die and had a health awakening, when that happened, I started to go, my body's really responsive when my body's functioning properly. I didn't have to spend hours at the gym for my chest to get bigger, my shoulders to get bigger, for my biceps to get bigger. I remember I set a goal, really simple. And for a long time, I had a mental block here because of this idea of vanity. And then I realized actually higher self-worth, one representation is your physicality.
For sure.
And I started realizing that, and I go, okay, I just want to increase my shirt size by one. So I want to go from a medium to a large. And I was working with Ben, who's a good friend of mine, but he's an elite personal trainer. This guy knows so much about so much. And I spent years with him. And when I first met him, we were talking, and I said, I just want to go up a shirt size. And he said, okay, let's make it happen. And he helped me understand how my body functions so that it would function properly. Now, again, I'm going to tie this back, but a simple thing is like, okay, before we train your upper body, we're going to do a little lower body movement to trigger the growth hormones so that your upper body will actually respond the way you want it to.
For sure.
So we were doing some sled pushes, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to grow a shirt size here. And he said, I understand. Just trust the process. So I started to eat right. My hormones started getting right. I started to understand how sleep and recovery was so important, more than actually exertion in the gym. My shirt size increased like quickly. Quickly. And I remember, as a person who had trouble putting on like muscle weight for a long time, I remember thinking, well, that was easy. Well, when it comes to somebody who wants to make change in their life and they say, well, I can't do that, TJ. You can't. I can't do that. I would say you're stuck in a thought pattern that I'm not going to be able to break for you. That literally has to be the power of God. You have to have an awakening moment. And normally an awakening moment comes through loss. And that loss can look like a loss of a dream, a loss of hope that money could provide for you, a loss of a loved one, a romantic relationship, and it breaks the pattern. And then you realize, wait, whatever I've been thinking might not be the way I need to be thinking. And it's only at that point that if somebody says, but TJ, you did that. I'm not sure if I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I know I have a chance to respond. If they say I can't do that, then I can't help you.
Yep.
Because a man says he can, another man says he can't.
Yep.
Who's right? Both of them.
Both, yeah.
So I'm not going to fight you.
So good.
You know, but I wasted a lot of energy and effort with people who were not wanting it more than I did for them.
Yeah.
And when you're on the other side, as you know, helping people, you're like, man, just see what I see.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't make you see what I see.
Yep.
I can't do it. So it's really about, is somebody ready? And that person's not ready.
So what do you do in that case where like, if somebody's not ready, like, is it literally just, hey, go figure it out with God? And then when he gives you the loss, as you kind of put it, and it doesn't always have to be like a devastating loss. I don't know. I could talk about my journey, but is there anything they can do in that time in between?
Yeah, I don't want to leave them feeling like I got nothing now, TJ. Thanks for that. But it's actually not a bad thing for me to say it to you.
Well, dude, that's what you were like. I laid down in the park, and I think there's so much in the Bible that speaks to some of these things where we think that we need to strive and grind harder. Here's a personal example for me. I was praying heavily, and I'm like, God, like you give me all this vision for business and all this vision for my life, and like none of it's happening. And I was frustrated. I'm like, dude, what? Like, why would you give me the picture, but then not give me the blueprint to like lay it out? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, if you're really serious about it, we can do it in a year, but you need to give up surfing. So I was disobedient for like 2 months, finally give up surfing. And I thought in my head, I'm like, oh, God's making a way for me so I can do more marketing. And so again, strive mentality. And this is like after all this work that I've done, right? I love that you said before, you're like, we're not perfect. But dude, my time has been just literally in more prayer and more solitude. Mm. And so I love that you're sharing this because I think a lot of times it's like we need to do something. And that's a huge mindset shift to overcome. And it's especially hard when you look at everything on Instagram that's just like work more hours in the day, do this thing. So I really, really appreciate that, just that anchoring of like, hey, you don't always have to do more.
Yeah, there's definitely, maybe to kind of layer into that, one of the things that's really helped me is understanding that there's winter, spring, summer, fall.
Yep.
And I don't want to be wearing a winter coat in 100-degree weather during the summer.
For sure.
So what I've done in one season that worked might not work in another season. So if doing a whole lot and hustling worked and God showed me that and it worked, and whether I was aware God was showing me that, if it was just me operating in the principles of design, hustling, grinding, and it worked, cool. But like, is it summer now? Do I need a winter coat? You got to just check in and go, what season?
Yeah.
And so I think for you, what you're describing is like God showing you a different season for you where he's like, you understand, then you understand you can go do the marketing. I know you can do that.
Yeah.
Right. But then what if you just spend some time in solitude? Yeah. Could that work too?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the mistake we can make is we think, oh, because now it's solitude, it's always solitude.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily true.
100%.
But we got to know the season.
Yeah.
You know,
that's really good. Yeah. So I think I would love to ask your thoughts on this. So like, I love to talk about identity, and mostly because I get frustrated when people talk about identity, but the identity gets wrapped up in like, well, I worked at Goldman's, or I'm a chiropractor, or I'm an entrepreneur, which is more, it could be a calling. It could be just an assignment. And I think so there's like identity, there's calling, and then there's assignments. Right. Mm-hmm. And I love the example of the seasons because it's such a good visual of like, the assignment could be that right now you put on a winter coat because it's cold, but you may have to take it off when it gets 100 degrees or you're just going to suffer unnecessarily. And I've had many seasons of my life like that because I didn't understand this principle. So like, how would you break down this concept of identity and you can do it in the context of like how you work with people, but I'm just curious to know, like, what is identity to you? What's it mean to you? And then where do you see people most get stuck on the identity piece when they're really trying to figure out like, who am I? Who did God call me to be? Break that down for us.
Yeah, it's a great question. Identity in plain English is how you see yourself.
Yep.
Super simple. And people get stuck because a lot of times if you're high functioning, high performing, they get caught up in what you do. And what you do actually is a part of your identity.
Yep.
The baby with the bathwater thing, throw the baby out with the bathwater example is you step into a church sermon, somebody says it's not all about what you do, and somebody listening says, oh, well, identity has nothing to do with what I do. Not true.
Yep.
Identity absolutely has to do with what you do. The question is, are you getting your identity from the outside in or from the inside out? If you're getting your identity from the outside in, external to internal, then you're deriving that identity from what you do, and that defines you. Instead, flip it, and you want to drive your identity from the inside out. In other words, I am who I am, and whatever I do, that is influenced by me, rather than the other way around. And that's a stronger sense of identity when you come from the inside out. Now, it takes a lot of inner security to do that. And so in order to develop a stronger sense of identity, you have to deal with the insecurities. I don't even like telling people I'm a private coach. People say, what do you do? So I'm a private coach. Yeah, I do a lot of things, but that's the main thing I do. And it's just not so strongly in my identity, even as it once was 5 years ago.
Sure.
Because I just am who I am. And that's clear to me. The only reason that's happened, though, is because I have dealt with and am dealing with a lot of these insecurities. So I have a stronger inner security, which allows me to come at things, come at people, come at conversations, come at my work from a place of, I literally don't have to prove anything. Now, what's a practical example? I was on the phone with somebody the other day. They were saying, ultimately they were like, yeah, this conversation's been really helpful. Can we work together? And I'm saying, yes. And they're saying, essentially, I'm not sure if this is going to work, and that other thing, all the doubt thoughts starts creeping in. And in old self, I might have had a different response, but new self, my response was, let me tell you something. I'm going to do an excellent job. Yeah. The question is, are you going to show up and do an excellent job? And I believe you are. And it's not a place of cockiness. It's a place of confidence. And the difference is gratitude. I'm confident, not cocky, because I have gratitude for the fact that I can even do this for a living. And I know that it's not all me. So much of people's change and transformation happens from time outside of our conversations. So I'm just a vessel at this point. And it's like, well, I can be confident that it's not just me, and that the part I am delivering through my 10 years or whatever of experience, but also just who God made me, that part is going to be excellent because I put in the work. And so for me, understanding this piece of identity and dealing with the insecurities, you can't get around it. If you want a stronger sense of identity, you really have to deal with the insecurities. And that's not hard to observe in terms of where are you insecure in your life. For sure. Not hard to observe. I work with a lot of people. I hear a lot of private inner thoughts nobody shares. And I hear from these COOs, from these partners who've, been working in certain firms for a long time and have big clientele base and this and that, and they're talking with these high net worth people. I hear the inner dialogue of what goes on, and I hear where the insecurity is. And I know deep down that we all have those different layers to it. And there's always something else that you can be maybe addressing. But I also know that, when you start making that shift from insecurity to inner security, other people feel it. And it's, even if you show up in the same outfit, say the same words, do the same things, there is a massive difference. And you feel it internally. And I'll give it just last example to kind of maybe paint the picture, but you're running a marathon, I'm running a marathon. And in this case, you're the one with more inner security. You've got this peace inside of you. We're running at the exact same pace. You're running because you love the game. I'm running because I fear failure. We have a very different experience, even though we finish at the same time. And I don't want to live my life with that fear of failure experience, that insecurity, that whatever it is, because I can run the same race, finish at the same time, but have a totally different life journey. And that's not for me. So at some point you basically go, yeah, I'm done with that. I'm totally done with whatever that experience is. There's got to be something different. And there is. But back to the thing I said initially, one of the things that God addressed within me really early on my journey, and I think for a lot of people listening, if they're high functioning, all these others, and they have the identity question, they will benefit from hearing, lose your desire for significance,
Yep.
and I will bestow everything on you. That doesn't mean you're going to be king and you got all these other things going on, whatever, or queen. Yeah. That means that I'll bestow my peace, right? I'll bestow a life to its fullest, whatever that looks like. Doesn't mean you're not going to have hard times. Doesn't mean you're not going to do stupid things.
Yep.
But it means you'll change.
Dude, so good. So you said something. One, if you're listening, just go back and write down, like you try. There are so many nuggets. I'm like, I wish I had a little notebook to write these down. So go like literally write this stuff down, because it's just too good to not remember and like imprint in your brain. And this is the stuff that nobody talks about too, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, do this marketing tactic, or like say this in a sales script and you'll make more. And it's like, we're literally breaking that construct. And I'm not saying some of those things aren't important or don't work and don't help you get to a certain point, but what's going to push you further is what I hear you saying, mm-hmm. is actually stepping away from any of the tactical stuff, mm-hmm. and just going really deep personal. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm curious to know, this is very personal, is you said the words, you're like, who God made me to be. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious if you could define that for us, if you're open to defining it for you, like, who did God make TJ to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's who God made TJ to be, and there's who TJ can be.
Sure.
And those are very different sometimes.
Yeah, break it down.
And I think it's really important to remember that, because for a long time, when I started my spiritual awakening and I was on that journey, for a long time, I was thinking to myself, well, I got to be healed and whole. And so therefore, I'm not identifying with this brokenness in my life and these broken things and this person I have been. And that's fine. You can try and avoid that as long as you want. Sure. But ultimately, like, brokenness is inside.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you need to say, I can't have it. Yep. It's something that you just say, okay, I accept it. I just don't agree with it.
Right.
I don't agree with it. And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
So understand when I'm talking about this, that there's a big difference between acceptance and agreement. Mm-hmm. I can accept you for who you are and still not agree with what you do.
Yeah.
That's okay. The world right now is in this whole mindset of, oh, you just got to accept everybody. That they also think that means you got to agree with everybody.
Sure.
That's not true.
So
you can accept everyone and not agree with everyone. Yep. And there's a big difference, and there is a line. So for me, there's things that I would say in who I am, who God made me to be, definitely a man of intense faith. Like, mm-hmm. I have a risk tolerance that is far above a lot of people's. If I got into stories, it's a pretty high risk tolerance, and it's not necessarily, oh, I'm going to jump out of a plane without a parachute risk tolerance. But in other ways, I have a pretty high risk tolerance. So definitely a man of faith. Definitely a man who, I remember in New York, I totally got in front of a guy with a knife. Like, that is one of the dumbest things, but it didn't even faze my mind. And I remember just standing there, and this other guy's going crazy, and I'm like trying to disarm the situation. Didn't even cross my mind. I just walked across the street, stood in front of this guy, tried to disarm the situation and help this guy move across. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not even brave. It feels stupid. But I'm also like, there was literally zero fear in me in that. It was just total faith.
Yep.
And I'm not suggesting everybody does that, but I think God gives you faith for things, right?
Absolutely.
So definitely a man of faith. I would say in other ways, God made me very kind, empathetic, compassionate. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, strong in leadership to the point where I can overwhelm the compassionate side of me and just run people over to get a decision done.
Yeah.
And that's maybe, I wouldn't call it broken. I would call that an extreme use of a gift.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt.
And not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep.
But just an example of how we can take gifts and maybe use them to a level that kind of takes our other gifts and maybe puts them in the negative. So balancing the compassion with leadership.
Sure.
I could say I'm a compassionate leader, but look, you give me no food, no sleep, and we got to get something done.
Yeah.
You don't have a say, we're getting it done. Okay. Like, we're getting this done. So
good.
So that's, I would say, are key aspects for me. And now I'm really thinking about my family, though, with my wife and what she might say to this, because she might say God made me funny, but she might be joking. So I think there is a sense of lightheartedness and joy
Yeah.
that God gave me, as well as this really deep, intense personality, like super, super deep and intense.
Yep.
And like I feel things in a big, big, big way. He made me very sensitive, and the shadow side of sensitivity is impulsive.
Yep.
And that's a broken part of me that God's been helping me work through.
For sure.
Impulsiveness, because I am so sharp and sensitive, dude. When the Holy Spirit speaks to me,
Yep.
I don't even have to, I don't go through this long. Let me sit in a prayer closet 15 minutes. It's like, give that man $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I'm giving that number not because I want to share about a giving experience for me and say, look at me. I'm literally saying that because some people are so afraid of stuff like that.
Yeah,
And they
of course.
process it so much.
Yep.
But wouldn't you believe that that pastor that day, I was about to get married. That pastor that day, I get up right after I'd never seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
I get up, I go up to the front. I said, this is crazy. And he looks at me like, dude, I don't even want to hear what you're going to say. He looked like he was totally drained, you know?
Yeah.
Probably had dealt with a lot
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate. And I said, like, I'm literally don't even know where this is going, but I felt so strongly the Lord wanted me to give you $5,000. And this dude turns white, his face drops, and he goes, the Holy Spirit told me before I preached today, someone was going to come up here and give me money.
Wow.
And I'm standing there going, well, I'm your guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't even know if this is the right amount.
Yep.
It seems crazy to me because I'm about to get married and I'm dealing with all this other stuff and I got this debt and this other stuff. But here I am. And that's what I mean by where's the line between sensitive and impulsive.
Yeah.
But I'll look back, I go, man, that's faith 100% of the time for me because I didn't even care what happened to that money.
For sure.
I just listened to the Lord. He confirmed it to me. Whether that guy told the truth or not, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Because I just did what I knew was right within inside me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'll leave that as far as like, it can be hard to deal with the insecurity and have that inner security knowing that it can go both ways.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, you mentioned gambling, and I can't help but think like that's part of that. So like the enemy can use these things and trick us into like, oh, you know, that's a big thing with like, I see it with a lot of people who are like, well, I made a bunch of money. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still not like, you know, we don't have to get into this conversation, but like, it's still not kingdom. And that they can just be like turned into something that's not as what the gift was intended to be for, I think in some ways, which is super special. So dude, I could talk to you literally all day long. But I know you have a family and I want to make sure you get back to your beautiful family. So I'm curious to know, before we go, where can anybody listening, watching find you, connect with you? Give us all the places.
Yeah. So I used to be online a lot more.
Yep.
I'm just not with my twins. I'm just focused on other things.
Praise God, as you should be.
Yeah, it's great. And at the same time, I still am online.
Yep.
But you can just find me on Instagram or LinkedIn or email or YouTube and just look up my name, TJ Loeffler, Loeffler, and you will find me.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I'm very personal. I'm not having people respond to you for me. I'm the guy who's responding. And if anything from this message resonated or you have questions, I do have more resources too. So
cool.
I'm happy to share other conversations, videos, podcasts, things that might be helpful.
I love it, man. Any last words for anybody listening before we jump off here?
Understand that the first 4 letters of health, for anyone listening to this message on your podcast, the first 4 letters of health are heal. And I did not understand really what those words meant for a long time. And then I maybe took it to heart too much and went through the whole inner healing thing and thought everything was inner healing.
Yep.
But just know that healing is a process. It is not a one-time thing. It is vital to your health. And it is pivotal for your success, lasting success in every area of life.
So good. You heard it. TJ, I'm so grateful you came down, dude. Like,
thank you.
This is awesome. I have some cool stuff to tell you after, but fam, if you got some value out of this, go check out TJ. Man, you're just absolutely amazing, dude. So grateful that you took the time away from family. It's like more than an honor, more than words could ever describe.
I was going to respond, but then it looked like I was getting choked up. But I actually just needed a sip of water. I really appreciate that you had me down here. So thank you.
Yeah, dude. My pleasure. Awesome. TJ, amazing, bro.
It's good, man. Thank you.